Welcome to Big Business This Week. I'm Dave Briggs. It's the final week of 2024, and with that, a special look back at the three biggest business stories of the year and a look ahead at how they might impact 2025. And three things sum it all up: Elon, Nvidia, and of course, AI. 2024 has been a landmark year for artificial intelligence, reshaping industries and daily life in ways once thought impossible. From groundbreaking advances in generative AI and autonomous systems to major ethical debates and global policy shifts, AI's impact has been felt worldwide. As we close out the year, we'll explore the biggest breakthroughs, controversies, and what the future may hold in this rapidly evolving field. This being the year of AI, that was all written entirely by ChatGPT. And I'll follow the outline ChatGPT laid out for this next discussion. Thankfully, we'll have it with an actual human. He is Ben Fritz, the AI editor for the Wall Street Journal. Ben, ChatGPT has come a long way. That wasn't bad writing.
No, it's pretty good. ChatGPT writes better than, it doesn't write as well as a really good writer, but it certainly writes better than the average person now.
Yeah, not bad at all. What to you was the biggest headline, the most significant AI advancement in 2024?
Man, there's so many. I mean, there's certainly technology stories, like you've seen the real takeoff of autonomous cars that are driven by AI. You've seen, I would say in terms of technology, the biggest story though was to see two different AI developers win Nobel Prizes. I mean, that really tells you how significant the science behind it has become and how it's shaping our world. And then, of course, there's huge business stories. Maybe most significantly, OpenAI is now worth $157 billion. That would make it one of the most valuable companies in the country, certainly. And it's becoming a for-profit company. It started as a little nonprofit research lab.
Is OpenAI the easy front runner in this space? And why is Elon Musk so ardently pushing back on them becoming a for-profit company? And it sounds like others are joining that fight.
Yes, I mean, OpenAI is definitely the leader. ChatGPT has by far the most consumer awareness, the most subscribers among consumers. There are, as of October, 11 million people paying for ChatGPT. And there's now, I think, around 300 million people using it every week, either paid or for free. Everybody else wants a piece of that business. Elon Musk is still bitter over his kind of controversial departure from OpenAI way back in 2018. And his claim is, hey, they were supposed to be a charity. That's why he gave them seed money to start. You can't just become a for-profit because you feel like it once you become successful. That's his argument. He sued them. And just recently, he got Meta on his side. Meta wrote a letter to California's Attorney General, essentially backing Elon Musk's argument. So it's kind of become Musk and Zuck versus Sam Altman.
Boy, is that going to be something to watch in 2025. So it's been used for years, if not decades, really. But AI's impact on our daily lives remains, for the most part, a ways out. How did it begin to creep into our lives on a practical basis this year?
Yeah, well, ChatGPT and its competitors are becoming more and more mainstream. More and more people are getting used to it. You know, it's a radical new technology, but now it's easily available on your phone, on your computer. And you're seeing more people start to use it for, simple things like recipes. You're seeing people in the business world start to use it to write marketing copy, prepare presentations, to summarize meetings. And, one of the biggest impacts, I think, that needs to be discussed is in education. I mean, so many students are now using it, for good to help them with research and maybe for bad to do their homework for them.
Yeah, I definitely have seen it as a parent in both ways. How about on our devices? Where are we seeing it, and where do you think that will go?
Well, certainly, obviously, every AI company has an app, but it's pretty significant now that Apple just launched Apple Intelligence, which is built into the iPhone. It's literally just like a week old and only on the newest iPhone, so people are just starting to get used to it. But it's, and Google, of course, is starting to integrate it into Android phones. It's very early going, but I think we're going to start to see people, certainly in 2025, get easily used to, hey, that picture isn't quite right. I'm going to have the AI on my phone fix it, or put that person in, take that person out, put a new background into it. It's going to summarize my emails for me. It's getting integrated into our phones pretty quickly. And it goes to show that, right now AI is an app. You open ChatGPT, you open Claude, but soon AI is going to be integrated into everything we do. It's not going to feel like a separate app. It's going to feel like it's just part of everything we do digitally.
How far do you think image and video generation have evolved this year? And as we look out, what are the implications there?
They've made big jumps in what they can do in very controlled environments. So when you see the kind of example videos that, for example, Sora, which OpenAI owns, and then VO, which Google owns, what they can do right now is quite impressive in terms of their fidelity. But it's still very expensive to do, which is why OpenAI limits how much you can use Sora, and you have to pay for it. And also, they can't make really complex long scenes, but they're getting there. It's honestly probably a matter of time, cost coming down, and the technology getting better. So it's amazing to see. Wow, that looks very real. That looks more real sometimes than anything we've ever seen with CGI before. But the ability to make something believable that doesn't have like an extra finger or physics that isn't in the real world in terms of the video still has a way to go. In terms of photos or images, it's very, very good. Honestly, it can look just like a real photo or drawing. It's just a question of whether you can get it to create the image exactly that you want it to. And that still takes a lot of tries, a lot of trial and error, and so on. But but for experts, it's getting there.
I've been astounded at the divide in terms of Gen Z and younger seem to easily identify those AI images.
Yeah.
Older generations, like my parents, cannot tell the difference at all. What are the biggest ethical debates and perhaps controversies at the moment?
Man, well, there's a lot of things that are clearly just on the horizon people are worried about. So deep fakes, obviously. The question of, as you said, is that a real image? Can we trust that what we're seeing is real? Is starting to become a problem. I think it's going to become a huge problem within a year. I mean, right now, we talked about schools. Right now, cheating with AI is a massive problem as it happens. It's happening right now, I should say, in schools and universities around the world. It's a huge ethical question of whether we can trust that the work kids are doing is really their own, and whether we should integrate AI into education or try to keep it as far away as possible. There's also the question of people developing relationships with chatbots. And obviously, there have been a few examples in lawsuits where kids who had relationships with AI chatbots ended up harming themselves. And that's obviously very horrifying and upsetting. But people are starting to develop emotional relationships with chatbots. That's entirely new territory. It's obviously very concerning.
Great to have you here on the show, AI editor at the Wall Street Journal, Ben Fritz. Coming up, Donald Trump may have been Time's Person of the Year, but here at Cheddar, it was another famous man who dominated the headlines in 2024. We'll tell you who after a short break. Welcome back to Big Business This Week, a show we could conceivably dedicate entirely to one man, Elon Musk. He became the first person ever to surpass $400 billion in net worth on December 11th, and he could become the first to pass $500 billion, $500 billion, by the time the ball drops, just a couple of weeks. The world's richest man could now buy every single NFL, NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball team and still have money left over. His wealth is more than the GDP of 140 countries. His fortune climbing 65% since Election Day, making the $250 million he spent getting Donald Trump reelected look like chump change. Let's talk about it with Derek Robertson. He's a reporter for Digital Future Daily and a contributor to Politico magazine. Good to see you, my friend. So how influential was Elon in helping get Donald Trump reelected?
We can now definitively say more influential than any other single person. The nearly $300 million that he contributed to the Trump campaign was the most of any single donor in this cycle. He was remarkably personally involved in the campaign, appearing at a series of pre-election rallies, funding his own Get Out the Vote campaign in key swing states. So I think I don't know if Donald Trump is the kind of guy who necessarily feels indebted to anybody, but if there was one person who you could pin attribution for his election on, more than outweighing that of any single other individual, it would definitely be Elon.
Of course, the most important question is how influential you think he'll be moving forward the next 4 years.
Well, that's a tricky question to answer because unlike most people who are elected president, we do have a referent for Donald Trump, we saw his first term, you saw this kind of revolving door of confidants, advisors, influential people like Steve Bannon or Gary Cohn, these types of figures who enjoyed great influence over Trump and then fell out of favor just as quickly as they seemingly came to power out of nowhere. A figure that I have personally been using as sort of a mental model for how Musk might operate in this White House is Jared Kushner, who seemed to have this mysteriously defined ambit behind the scenes for foreign policy business projects that Trump wanted a special personalized level of control over. However, something Jared Kushner enjoyed that Elon Musk does not enjoy is the benefit of being married to Donald Trump's daughter. So if conflicts arise similar to those that probably arose behind the scenes with Jared Kushner during the first Trump administration, you could see Elon Musk be ejected, just like many of Trump's other previous sort of confidants and Iago-like figures have been.
Yeah, it's really only family that sticks around. In fact, Anthony Scaramucci, I think one of the more insightful people into the Trump mind and world, said he has no friends and said that's not an insult. It's a fact. It's his style. He's never had friends. And if you look at it, Elon and Trump were inseparable for weeks at rallies, at the rocket launch, you name it. And then suddenly, poof, it looked like Elon disappeared from Trump's orbit. Did something sour? Was he getting too much attention?
There were some mostly anonymously sourced reports, including from some of my colleagues, that people at Mar-a-Lago and within Trump's orbit were sort of starting to get chagrined by the Uncle Elon shtick and his seeming ubiquity at Mar-a-Lago events, Trump family events, pretty much anywhere Donald Trump appeared in the immediate aftermath of the election. Elon Musk was not far out of the picture. And it's, it remains to be seen. We're still in this sort of liminal space between the election and Trump actually taking office, where we don't have exactly as much insight into the personal entanglements and policy ramifications of Musk's involvement. It does seem like he has the initial wave of ubiquity has ebbed a bit, and he's doing a lot of his involvement has come from social media in a manner that's redolent of Trump during his first term. And I honestly don't know what that looks like behind the scenes, but it has slightly shifted from the immediate weeks after the election.
It's going to be fascinating when you look at his wealth, what has happened, as I mentioned, since Election Day. Look at Tesla. EV adoption is slowing, gas prices are low. Tesla stock's up 70% since the election. Do you feel that the support for Trump was about Elon's wallet, or was it purely political?
It's hard to say, but I think this is not a very satisfactory answer, maybe, but it's a little bit of both. I think that when something is in your financial interest, as all of us understand who follow this world, it starts to become, you develop a political rationale for why it is in your interest. I don't think anyone, something I always tell people, I don't know Elon, I've never spoken with him, but something that I've learned from reading his biography, reading a voluminous amount about him and watching his every move, is that I think he's an extremely sincere person. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and much like Trump, he kind of lays it all out on the table, and what you see is what you get with him. So when he says that things, he's said things that are extremely politically charged in the past that relate to his businesses, like we need to build an AI that is not quote unquote woke like Google's Gemini AI, because if our AI is woke, it will destroy civilization. I think you can safely assume that he sincerely believes that. Yeah. Is that also financially beneficial to him in deriding one of his competitors and boosting his own AI company, XAI? Yes, it is. I don't think either of those two things are less true for that reason.
Of course, his primary role with Vivek Ramaswamy is DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, cutting what Elon says is frankly an unimaginable figure of $2 trillion from federal spending. Should we just set that aside with the $25 trillion predicted market cap for Tesla based on humanoid robots?
Yeah, I mean, I kept thinking about this when the initial reports about Doge were coming out, and he published his op-ed with Ramaswamy in the Wall Street Journal. That for people who are primarily politics watchers and are not familiar with Musk's business career, they might not be used to the fact that numbers are notional for Musk, and that's not even necessarily a knock on him because he, largely his fortune is based on people investing in Tesla based on its potential rather than its output at the time. Notional numbers made him the wealthy man that he is. Is Doge going to cut trillions from the federal budget? It would require a remarkable historical bureaucratic achievement in order to do that, which we've covered in our in Digital Future Daily to a fairly granular degree.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but if he did achieve that, it would be something that our children and our children's children would probably read about in history books, which is exactly the scale of achievement that he's looking for.
Over under in 10 seconds. How long will this dynamic last? Over under is a year. What are you taking?
Well, okay. Let's set the year just for if we're setting the line. Let's set it at 2026. I would take the under on that. I tend to as influential as Musk is, I think that it's hard to stay in favor with Trump unless you're family. And at the end of the day, Uncle Musk is an uncle in name only.
That is brilliant. I too take the under on 2026. Great conversation. Derek Robertson from Politico. Appreciate you being with us, sir. Happy holidays. Coming up, was there one company people were buzzing about down here more than any other? There was, and it wasn't even close. That had a lot to do with AI. We'll break that for you next. Welcome back to Big Business This Week, looking back at 2024 and ahead to 2025. Both here at the New York Stock Exchange and up the street at NASDAQ, no company has been mentioned more this year than Nvidia. The chip maker was briefly the most valuable company on the planet with a market cap north of $3 trillion, and the stock still up 170% this year. Suddenly, though, the darling stock driving eye-popping market gains is pulling back a bit, now in correction territory. Let's talk about the chip giant that dominated Tech Talk all year with Angelo Zeno. He's the Senior Vice President, Technology Equity Analyst at CFRA. Good to see you, my friend. So the stock down about 7% over the past month. Why?
Yeah, I mean, we think it's more of a sentiment thing than anything else, to be honest with you. So you kind of look at how the stock has performed here as of late, and not even only as of late, but over the last couple of years. I mean, this is a company that's had triple-digit returns in 5 out of the last 6 years, ever since we've kind of seen the Gen AI inflection in early 2023. This is a company that's seen its revenue or its data center business grow north of 7x in the span of, 8 or 9 quarters or so. So, I think there are a lot of investors out there that are kind of looking for that period where Nvidia is probably going to have that moment where it has to kind of digest maybe some of those gains or even potentially see a pullback in its business. We don't see that taking place at all in 2025. So we do think any type of pullback that you've seen here as of late, whether it be for sentiment reasons or for other reasons, are buying opportunities. The other thing I would say about kind of the recent pullback here is if you actually look at Nvidia's performance relative to, I guess, some of its peers, specifically Broadcom and Marvell, which are kind of viewed as these kind of custom silicon players out there, two names that essentially kind of benefiting from the trend of these hyperscalers essentially designing their own chip out there.
Never seen anything like Nvidia with repeatedly blowing away estimates with every earnings, and oftentimes the stock will fall. Are they a victim of their own ridiculous success?
I mean, to an extent, yes, but we continue to believe when you think about a company like Nvidia, they will continue to do well just because of where we think fundamentals are going for this company. So, we always tell investors not to kind of look at any type of performance on a day in, day out perspective. But when we kind of think about specifically this upcoming cycle in terms of this Blackwell launch that we've now just begun to see ramp, this is a cycle where they're going to see some really nice kind of wallet share, market share gains kind of across the broader data center space. So where we kind of just highlighted names like a Broadcom and Marvell, where maybe they kind of start taking pieces of market share across the accelerator space. The broader kind of data center wallet share, we think, is an area where Nvidia can actually still take share because of kind of the new offerings that they have going for them outside of just GPUs themselves.
Dive back into Blackwell in a moment, but we mentioned that pullback 7%, but perspective, of course, to your point, matters. If you invested $10,000 in Nvidia 10 years ago, you're $2 million richer today. How do you put in perspective what they've done, how far they've distanced themselves from the competition?
Listen, I think all you've got to do in terms of looking at their success here is just take a look at the free cash flow that this company is generating. I mean, the best predictor in terms of future gains for any company is how much free cash flow they're going to generate in the future. When you kind of look pre-Chat GPT moment, this was a company that was kind of generating free cash flow at an annualized pace of, let's call it 3 to 5 billion. If you kind of look at where we expect their run rate to be by the end of next year, we think it surpasses 100 billion run rates.
And finally, Angelo, to those unfamiliar with the name, and no one in our circle is unfamiliar with Jensen Huang, but to the mainstream audience, he's not the Elon Musks of the world or the Tim Cooks. What can you tell us about the Nvidia CEO and what makes him the driving force behind what Nvidia has done?
Listen, I think this guy is essentially kind of the Einstein of our era in many respects. He is kind of the, I mean, he invented the GPU out there, is the founder of Nvidia back in the 90s, but he is such a visionary out there. This was the guy that basically saw what was coming 15, 20 years in advance and essentially kind of invested properly to make sure that Nvidia was in the right place at the right moment in time. And it took some time here. But as you can see here, I mean, this is a company that is now, one of the biggest in the world. And when we personally kind of look at this company over the next 3 to 5 years, this is probably going to be a company that drives the tech space and kind of the broader markets a lot higher than it is right now.
Excellent perspective there, Angelo Zeno, CFRA. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for the analysis and happy holidays. That's going to do it for our last episode of Big Business This Week in 2024. But be sure to tune in 2025 for even more of the business stories you need to know. Have a happy and safe new year.